All right, folks, this is the end of July. So, you know what time it is? Time for another episode of This is the End with the Zion Network's own Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Uh, those of you who are astute will notice that we're down two horsemen, so we'll have to give you the story for that a little bit later on. But for now, it's your boy Roun. We got Mohz, we got Cam, and with us we got a special guest, the illustrious, the magnanimous, the magnificent Matthew Clarke. So, for those of you who don't know, just going to give you a quick run through. This is the End is a spin-off show from the Zion Network. Here we try to shine a spotlight on the Zion Network itself, the work we're doing. We also try to do some highlights of pop culture that resonated with us for the month. So it's a bit of a monthly review show. This month we were mixing it up, and instead of reviewing a comic book, we are interviewing one of the creators of comic books within the network, and a man who's been doing some amazing work. I've been looking to pick his brain from the time we reviewed Hard Years. For those of you who don't know, the Zion Network is a pop culture and comic book group founded by Mr. Sean Allen. Sean is a Barbadian-born comic book artist who resides in Philadelphia. He started the Zion Network in Philly, but after coming back to Barbados and reconnecting with his Barbadian roots, he created the offshoot Zion Network 246, which is the Barbados contingent of the Zion Network. And that is headed up by the one and only award-winning Julian Mohz Mosley, and the de facto leader of the Horsemen. So, before we get started on today's interview, let's all introduce ourselves. Julian, shout out the people.
All right, cool. No problem. Thanks again, Roun. It's me, Mohz. Spelled Mohz, Heart Vengeance. So when God said vengeance be mine, he was talking about me technically. So you know what I mean. It's Saturday, it's hot, it's summer, and it's the end of July, and outside hot as hell. I don't know about y'all, but I just got my water here just straight sipping.
Yeah, my fan is on full blast.
Well, you know how it is. Yeah, so that's it.
All right, nice. Next, introduce yourself, Cam, our resident horseman of wrath. And
yo, what up, everyone? Good evening, and big shout out to all the Caribbean athletes in taking part in the Olympics. Big shout out to the 1, 2, 3 from Jamaica this morning. Yo, those ladies are on fire. So just give them a big applause. But yeah, it's me again, Cam, Horseman Wrath, here recovering from an injury from the gym, trying to look sexy.
She's on
struggling. I'm struggling. Apparently
struggling.
But it doesn't matter because right now we here with Matthew and we about to get into some serious stuff. So I've been looking forward to this interview the entire month, and I hope it is as good as I think it will be.
All right, sounds good. I guess that just leaves me from the main Horseman lineup. It's your boy Roun, Horseman of War. I'm a hobbyist artist and writer and illustrator, creator of Restoration Earth, man with very strong and often controversial opinions. Yeah, that's basically it. With no further ado, let's jump right into the show. So, like we said, we have a special guest today. That is our boy Matthew Clarke. So we're going to let Matthew introduce himself. Matthew, first of all, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, good evening. First of all, thanks for having me on the show. I'm very excited to be here. I am a graphic designer by day, comic illustrator by night. I also write comics as well. And I am one of the founding members of Beyond Publishing Caribbean. I recently have a book signed with Megascope Publishing, which is an imprint of Abrams comics arts from Harry Abrams Publishing. So very excited about that. It's been this, in spite of all the pandemic madness, it's actually been an exciting year for myself and the Beyond team, comic book wise and creative wise. So Very excited to share this interview with you folks and answer the questions from the three horsemen.
All right, thanks a lot, Matthew. So yeah, man, we're really excited to get things started. Yeah, man, I feel like we've been hearing a lot from Beyond Publishing on this show particularly. We've definitely been realizing that you guys seem to be the cream of the crop when it comes to the production of Barbadian comics, and I was really happy to see that you got signed with Abrams Books for your run of Hard
Thank
Ears,
you.
and that was phenomenal stuff, man. I will tell anybody that I was personally sleeping on Hard Ears until I read it. That stuff it's amazing. The amount of
Thank you.
research, the quality of the storytelling, the quality of the art, the ability to link back to what's going on in the Caribbean and to really portray our folklore in a coherent way. I was genuinely blown away. So good to
Thank
see.
you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, good to see you guys in particular and Barbadian Butts in general getting the shine that they deserve. So, um, without further ado, I think we're going to get into asking you some questions. So, um, I feel like you've already told us a bit about yourself and spoken to Beyond Publishing. So just tell us what books you've worked on in the past, and let us know what you're working on now, and if you got any plans for the future, Matthew.
Sure. I've worked on Mass Anthology 1 and 2. Then there was Life and Death in Paradise. And then there was Heartman. Then after Heartman, there was obviously Hard Ears. And currently there is, there was the covers for the Crossroads series with the U.S. Embassy Bridgetown. Then
Yes, yes.
there was also currently there's a title that the first book was released that was illustrated by Tristan Roach. I'm doing the second book called Diary of the Stray Dogs, written by
Yes,
Nigel
yes.
Lynch, whom I work with closely a lot. And there's also Heartman issue 3 that is also in the pipelines. And I'm also working on another project that should be announced soon. Can't talk about it just yet, but I'm very anxious to share it with everybody.
That sounds good.
Oh yeah, yeah, that sounds good. I'm personally very excited for Heartman Volume 3. I thought Heartman was definitely one of your more interesting books. I love your take on the graphic aspect of horror. And
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm not yeah, I'm not generally like super into horror, but Heartman spoke to me. I loved it. I loved it.
It's actually my favorite book that I've written. Not necessarily drawn, but it was my favorite story that I have created.
I don't know. I think for me, yes, Heartman. I like. I think out of all the books I've read that you have written, Heartman is my favorite, and is from an overall perspective is the feeling of the book and how well you do tone with just the grayscale.
For the
I
screen tones. Thank
yeah,
you.
I like that. As always, the vehicles are on point. like,
Bruh.
like the
I'm a car
vehicles,
nerd, so
yeah,
I
the
like
vehicles are always on
vehicles.
point, and then the art and then the story that is developing for me is one of the more compelling stories because it's so personalized. You are actually seeing what people think and seeing how they react to something that is personally affecting them. And to me, that's a bit more intense than, let's say, Hard Ears, because Hard Ears gives you like this broad view of a system. I think I'm gonna have to
Right.
start out this light behind me just like
No,
just
yeah,
now.
I
Yeah.
understand. I
But
understand what
yeah,
you mean because you see the difference is that her theirs was more about the world itself,
yeah,
different groups vying
Right.
um, for control of this situation. While Hartman is zeroed in more on the results of persons going through these tragic experiences, these series of tragedies in this tight knit community in rural Barbados. So you would in Hartman, for instance, there's a part in issue 2 where the lady in Lisa in the bus she
Mm-hmm.
sees one of the victims of one of the Hartman
man,
killing, and
yeah.
instead of zeroing in on the aftermath, I zeroed in on the reaction to
Action.
what they saw. So it showed the
Ah,
people
right.
throwing up, people crying. That to me is as equally horrific, the human tragedy component, as opposed to just the
The, the
the
gore.
gore fest and the shock.
Mm-hmm.
There is that in the book,
Shock value.
but I spend careful time showing the aftermath
Okay.
because there are sad situations and they find in horror movies and things when you see something happens, you often wonder, but what happened to the families of these victims?
Exactly.
Where are the bawling mothers that are screaming? And these are things you see in real life. When you see a tragic situation, you're actually haunted not just by the situation, but by the reactions of the victims or the families of the victims. To me, that sometimes is the greatest horror, and I wanted to capture that in the book.
Okay, cool. So Matthew, you and I go way back, as far as attending community college, Barber's
Yes,
Community College, and did the you did the bachelor's in graphic arts, and also I did the associates. So tell us what made you get into comics and writing into comics,
I was
because
into
we all as artists
comics
we were
from the
drawing stuff.
time I was
So
learning to read. I was very young. I learned to read on comics. Well, you
mhm,
learn to read in school, but you really learn to read when you want to start reading. That's what I tell people.
Yep.
You know,
it's
they
true.
make you read at school, but you learn to read on your own. And I loved comic books. I loved the art, and I wanted to understand further what was going on in the panels. So when I was a kid, I would look at the pictures, but then later I got into reading the speech bubbles,
Hmm.
etc. And I said one day, I want to try this. And I got some paper and I stapled it together and I started drawing a small comic. Fast forward to secondary school, and I then
Hmm.
there were these notebooks that didn't have lines on the pages that you could buy from the school. We used to call them rough
Right.
notebooks. And
Yo, I remember those
listen, I
back
used
in
to make those.
secondary school.
I
You
still
those
have
I used to
mine.
make those smart B.
I have
Wow.
stacks of them that we sat down in class and at lunch and we just drew and drew and drew these epic series of comics. I actually plan to scan some and just like put them up online,
Hmm.
Yo,
because
Just to show them.
I used to do the exact same thing, B.
Interesting.
Yeah,
yeah,
man, I
that
would love to
that
see that.
that got me into the comic book thing. And then when I went
Hmm.
to BCC, I started to do them during the summer. And the first real book I ever wrote actually was the same heart. Me, I wrote books before, but the
Right.
serious commitment to finishing a story was Heart. Man, I remember that was a hot summer. That was the summer that was 2007.
Hmm.
Somehow that summer felt longer than others. And I started the first issue. It was 150 pages I did that summer.
Right.
Then when I left BCC. I did the second, but I wasn't working yet. And I remember I had that story written beginning to end in a notebook. And there's a twist to it because it is a horror, but it's actually a love story. A lot of
So
people
people might not know
may
that
not
too.
be aware because they haven't seen the third book.
Okay. So let me just talk about art style for a bit because the art style is different from your previous work. So obviously back then you were influenced by manga heavily. You could
Yeah, I
tell us a
love
little bit more.
manga.
Uh-huh.
I still do. There's still remnants of manga in my work. I love speed lines and I love movement.
Right.
Manga captures a lot of
That
that.
is, that explains a lot.
So that's I love to use speed lines. I love movement, but I'm
Hmm.
also influenced heavily by in terms of storytelling and artwork. 2000 AD's Judge Dredd. Not
Hmm.
one artist in
Mm.
particular, but how they approach the world. The world feels alive.
Hmm.
So really and
Okay.
truly, Mega City One is also a character. He's that's a star, and Judge Dredd is just the conduit that takes you through that setting. So that
No,
is
here's
what
the
I
thing.
kind of did with her her theirs.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Because
So
some
you
people
see,
say, well, pardon?
now I was saying if Ian
Oh,
was
Yeah, Ian
here, he'll
always
be
says
yeah,
arm in
that.
sorry,
arm
you're
saying that
not
well, yeah,
here
he
this
understands because he
evening.
got it. He's yeah, because he's always saying that the setting is a character. So if he
The
was here,
setting
he
is a
would yeah. So
character,
that was
and
one for Ian.
in that book, the setting you Bolo and the characters are conduits that take you through
Mhm.
this place. So the and
Right.
if you look in the background, it was done. Frank Miller does it a lot as well, and Edward Riso in
Yeah.
100 Bullets, where you have a main plot going on, but in the background there's little sub activity with background
Happening.
characters who do get
Okay.
dialogue. I love when background characters get dialogue and even focus because it,
Hmm.
it shows that there's more going on in this world than
Then
just
just
the story that you're
Exactly.
reading. And it also
correct.
adds for a little comic relief.
True.
Oh yeah,
True.
definitely.
Because
That
I've
reminds
seen
me
it.
of the guys
Yes.
discussing the rum in Hard Ears.
Yes. And there was also the guy
Hilarious.
after the destruction who was talking about his wife still being alive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Little threads like that I like to put in the background of the work, and I love to show the setting. The work should feel alive
Yeah, I get
and
you. I get you.
complex. I also I also like to show like the politics of the setting. So it's not just oh there's an adventure, so there's a bunch of castles. They want to tell you who these castles are loyal to, etc.
Hmm.
Right.
I get that, and I think that segues quite nicely into a question that one of the main questions that I wanted to ask, and that was I find that for Heartman and Hard Ears especially, I feel like a lot of research goes into these books. You have a lot of lore captured. You got a lot of historical accuracy in there. You got a lot of I think information that the average person just isn't aware of, and you pack it. You don't just pack it into books. You pack it into books in a way that makes the story more interesting. So is that something
Thank
that you
you.
were?
Yeah,
Is that
I'm a self-confessed history nerd.
okay?
I love history. I love researching.
Hmm.
Part of the mission of my books is to preserve is cultural preservation. So Herders does a lot of that, and as well as Hartman. But even Life and Death, when Alan told me, because that is Alan's story, Life and Death, and
Hmm.
when Alan gave me that script, I made sure that we included other aspects of Barbadiana, the accurate portrayals of landmarks,
Hmm.
things in the background, little cultural nuances, so that when you read the book, you feel that you have been transported to Barbados in the year 2012 when that was done.
Right.
Yeah, man. I think you
And
do
it
an
shows
amazing
actually
job.
because seeing
Thank
the
you.
setting, honestly.
Um, question with regards to your research: Is it that you come up with a? Is it that you come up with an idea first for a comic, and then but then based on the story that you want to tell, you will go into research about things that involve it, or is it like you might have been like, as you say, you're a nerd for history, so is it that you might be reading up on something like, hey, this is cool. I wonder what would happen if this was X, Y, or Z. Well, that's interesting. It does. Let's see how this goes. Is it that the idea comes first and then you research it, or are you just randomly looking up stuff and then
It
you you
there-
get
there's
like
there,
inspiration?
there's no set formula. So, like for instance, Hartman, I always knew of the folk character from my grandparents,
Hmm.
and I always wanted to do a book about the Hartman. So the research was already done through oral tradition, and I was very much aware of the character. I just needed to put it in a setting. In
Right.
terms of Herders,
Hmm.
the research was done, and then more research was done on top of that because I knew I wanted to do a Caribbean fantasy. I have a breadth of knowledge on folk characters, but further to that, further research then was done on other characters that he introduced, as well as characters that I thought I knew about, and I wanted to know even more about these characters so that I could do them justice, as well as put my own take on them. Because a lot of the content that I'm touching on also has a lot of cultural weight. So it has to be dealt with a certain level of care and respect for the subject matter, so that I
Right.
could then effectively adapt it to what I'm doing without misappropriating or misrepresenting the subject matter that I am dealing with. Because I have to also remember too that I am preserving aspects of culture and I still don't want to misrepresent it. Even
Understood.
as I modernize it and update it, because these books, the problem with Caribbean culture is that it is not always documented in the domain of pop culture. You may have
Mhm.
traditional or historical literature, and oftentimes there's very few imagery or illustration. There's mainly like an account or a description. So when I take, for instance, like the land ship, I try to make it true to what it is, but I still took it and I added my twist to it. But I still had to be careful because the
Right.
land ship is actually um, a sacred fraternity in its head there. And it was not one group. There were many ships in shipping societies. They actually never called themselves land ship. That is a recent phenomenon in the 80s
Okay.
and
Mm.
late 70s, but they
Okay.
always refer to themselves just as ships or shipping societies. And what we see today
Mhm.
is the not a true representation of the original landship fraternity, because it was a fraternity, it was a friendly society, it was an integral part of the community. Originally, it was an all male institution,
Okay.
and then they introduced females later on. So, like, all that is part of the history. They also had ritual, which was not for viewing by the public,
Mm.
because it
Mm.
had a fraternal
Really,
order and they would meet at what is called a dock.
Mhm.
So what
I
you
don't know. Like, all right, like how do you know this? Like, where did you research this? Because, like you said, my understanding of the land ship is that is like a group of people, like that is a loose fraternity, and they used to do the performances, and they
As
used
you
to do the
know.
performance as entertainment, and there's also they used to do like the susus as a way as a community
Right,
of
meet and
helping out
turn
each
and
other,
thing.
right?
But it wasn't a loose fraternity at all. In fact, it was
Mm.
very close knit, very tight, with guarded fraternal secrets.
I didn't know
And
this.
it,
This is so cool.
yeah, a lot of people don't know this. And each ship had individual rules, etc., but they all followed similar guidelines, and they were I won't use the word competitive, but they they're very complex organizations, more complex
Okay.
than what we think we know today. What we see today is a caricature of what this organization originally was, but unfortunately, a lot of that died out as the membership died out, and it lost began to lose relevance in the society, which is a
Hmm.
shame, bit of a shame. So what I'm attempting to do, I'm attempting to preserve some of that through entertainment and get
Okay.
not only persons here, but all over the world to first of all make them aware that this exists, and then secondly, um, also illustrate how important this institution was to the functioning of Barbadian society at its heyday and in its time. That is why in the book, there's they serve as defenders of the Juve
Right,
Islands,
islands.
Right,
the
right,
the the
right.
the Hardares Islands, and that is an analog for the role of the land ship to defend the poor with their charitable work, as well as defend the moral fabric of the society. A lot of the rituals were actually allegories for moral teachings. A lot of people don't
Mm.
know that. And
Mm.
originally, not many of the land ships used to do the walk up maneuvers.
That's what I was
For the
asking too.
foreign viewers, the walking up is the gyrating of the hips, which is very integral to Caribbean dance movement.
Yep.
Um, and that is part of the land ship performances, but each ship had different maneuvers. So if you were to go back in time to like the 1930s, the ships would have been more militaristic in the movement, but there was one particular ship in town that was known for the gyrations. And then over time, that became the stereotype of the what we see today.
I have a question, Matthew, and
Sure.
this is about land ships. I have completely forgotten about all of your comics. I was like,
Sorry, yeah, I
so
kind of went
is it
sideways. You see,
is
I
it
warn y'all, I'm a history nerd.
is
So,
it
Yeah,
so
so
then is it true that it was brought about by like sailors, Barbadian sailors that were in the Royal Navy, and if so, was it from the like First World War era or after that into the
it's
Second World
pre-World War.
War?
It's pre-World War.
What?
What happened
I
is
did. Y'all know this?
after
Y'all knew this?
I did not know
Because
this. This is
post-emancipation.
all
no, no,
I've
no.
always
education for
been
me.
like taught that it came out of like the Second World War.
World
No,
War.
no, that's too young. That's too young. Pre-emancipation, the Anglican Church started this program of organizations called Friendly Societies when they were
Hmm.
trying to Anglicanize the post-emancipation Black population and use the Christian religion to pacify the population and make loyal subjects to the Queen and the colonial authority. But these friendly
Right.
societies were always viewed with suspicion. And what happened was persons trained in the organization of these friendly societies then left and formed their own friendly societies. And these became what is known as the shipping societies. Now, Barbados has a big shipping culture.
Yeah,
There were
for
a lot of
sure.
British naval bases for St. Anne Fort, etc., etc. And the the allegory of shipping maneuvers was used as the analog to the moral teachings of the shipping societies that came about in the post-emancipation era. Now, what exactly caused that is I have to do further research,
Please
Okay.
do.
but it does predate the First World War.
Okay,
There's
cool.
Wow.
even some theory that it may even have started during the very end of
Of the
the
second, the First
slavery
World War.
era. But that is
Okay.
that is not confirmed. That was around long before the First World
Long
War. We're
before.
talking
So
about
that like
Okay.
in 1900s, 18,
no,
late
we're talking about
Basically,
18. Yeah, we're
18.
talking about
1800s, late
late
1800s.
1800s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting.
So that's
This
why
is
this
exactly why I
subject
wanted Max
matter
on the show.
I had to handle with a lot of respect because
Okay.
this this has a lot of cultural weight. A lot of people don't
Right.
realize that, and I'm trying to revive it through the work that I do because this organization alone, and there's just one aspect of how it is, but this organization was very integral to Barbadian societies, even influencing practices in credit unions, etc. Um, and
Mm.
with the meeting term, financial activity, education. So I really had to handle this subject matter with a great degree of respect because it is sacred. It's sacred to me, and it's sacred to the psyche of the fabric of Barbadian culture. So this is me putting my little patch on that tapestry.
As an artist, can you tell us then why you feel this way? As in, why is do you feel the responsibility to portray these things accurately? As in, essentially, what you just explained to us. Do you feel that that's a responsibility of all artists when they're delving into things of culture, especially from things that are dead or dying, to portray them accurately? Or should people be able to put their own twist and spin on things? And how much leeway should artists be given when they're dealing with things of culture such as Juve or the different types of supernatural creatures from your same Hard Air series, from the land shit, even like folklore hero, not heroes, but folklore characters like Sam Lars and all of those people. Like,
I
how accurate do you think you should be portraying those things? How
I think it's
much
up to the
leeway you should give?
creative. I think it's up to the creative. So I don't think
Mm.
anybody has to do it. It's a personal choice.
Hmm.
If not, it won't be creativity. Create once you begin to stifle creativity with too rigid a rule, then it loses the creativity.
Fair
So
enough.
I think it's up to even like my portrayal of the harder sorry of the landship is not accurate.
Right.
It's definitely not accurate, but it is my modern adaptation, my fantasy, my take on that to help preserve the existence of this group, and so that is my duty, how I see it. But you as an artist, or all the artists out there, anybody listening to this, I don't think you're obligated to go on a benevolent crusade to do X and Y. But I think, as an artist, there's still a level of responsibility,
Hmm.
and it's up to you, I believe, in personal choice to, if I'm going to tell you that I'm going to preserve something, like I put a appendix in the back of the book, and they kind of describe what the shipping societies were and how they did function, so that after you see my personal take on the land ship, I could introduce you to what the actual group was like.
Right.
And you could see the difference to what I portrayed.
Hmm.
You don't have to do that, but that's just how I choose to function. So I think, and because there's a bit of weight on your shoulders too, because I would be probably one of the first people putting this in comic book format. I think as once you are the first or the best, the most known for something, you usually become the canon, like the definition of something
Yeah.
until something better comes along, right? So
Mhm.
until then, I said, well, let me make sure that I at least tell people what this thing is really about, right? But I still took my take on it, my artistic license, my creative spin on it to suit the world and to make it exciting, you know. But I don't think that you should be necessarily tied down to being a all around historian.
Right.
But I still like some kind of when I'm handling certain subject matter, there's a level of respect because I
Right.
still dealing with people's culture, my culture, the culture of the Caribbean, and I understand the weight of the symbolism and some of the icons that influence my work. So there's still a respect. I pay a reverence to it as I put my spin on it because you can. It's possible to be disrespectful when you, especially when you're dealing with culture. Culture is like dealing
Right.
with religion or politics. You know, is a sensitive subject matter, and the caution is that if I do something that becomes very popular, it could be misrepresenting an aspect of culture. So even as I take my spin, I still am culturally aware of what I'm doing
Mhm.
and the weight of the symbols that I'm using while still being creative. Now, as I say, you don't have to do that. Creativity is whatever you
The
make
choice.
it. And
Right.
I don't think that just like how with musicians, if you don't set yourself as a role model, but then you don't have to be a role model. That's a personal decision you make. I have
Yeah, for
my
sure.
personal mission with the work that I do. So I think it's up to the creative. So to answer the question, I think that is really a personal choice of the creative person rather than, oh, you have to do this or, nothing like that. I don't subscribe to.
Well, I mean that's a great answer, and I think I see this reflected throughout the work of Beyond Publishing as a whole. Um, I find that even in the book written by Nigel, the representation of Barbadian culture is very authentic. I think Nigel has I think he has an excellent knack for dialogue. I feel like in terms of capturing the way that Barbadians speak and the way that our culture is expressed through words, I think he does an extremely good job.
Yes.
Even some of the work that Julian is doing in the background that the public hasn't seen yet, I read it. There's always this really strong underlying focus on Barbadiana, and even in completely fantastical settings, the thought is to push through Barbadian works, push through Barbadian concepts in your works. This is something that you guys do. Is this like something that you actively sat down and you said, okay, man, we're going to really try to push Barbadian culture through our comments, or do you think that's something that just comes naturally to you guys?
I think it came naturally. So there was no roundtable meeting and nobody was pointed at and say you have to do this like this or else. There was nothing like that. I think what happens is osmosis. So like you have we are Barbadians. We live in the English speaking Caribbean. So, we are exposed to some other cultures as well. Comic book wise, we are exposed to Western European, most recently Japanese and no African Korean comics. And
Correct.
we realized that our unique selling position was, hey, we're from the Caribbean and our culture stands out. You don't really see it in comic book format a lot. And I think by creating these works and other members of the group, they say like birds of a feather flock
Fuck
together and
together.
Mhm.
Correct.
what you associate with rubs off. So like if
Mhm.
when Tristan did Spirit Bear, that then would have influenced um persons like myself to then finish their fantasy, and then that would have then influenced another writer in the group. So it's like an osmosis kind of thing. So when we done, all of us have some kind of Caribbean something. And before that, even like Hartman, it could have easily made up a horror character, but Hartman has a little more weight to it personally
Right.
for me because it's an actual folk character, you know. So I then put my take on it, but it's an actual character. So I'm using something's there, something that I know, something that's relevant to me, something that I believe in culturally, and it adds more weight to the work that I do. I mean, that is how I approach it. Again, you don't have to do it like that, but that is kind of like what we ended up doing. So then it just became like a trend in the group. And then it was almost like we were wondering like who could do what with what, like who could take this Shaggy Bear, which is a character from Barbadian, crop over, is actually a West African Shango character, and how can we take that? So you see that in Delvin's work in Offset, illustrated by Tristan Roach. So that's kind of like, I enjoy doing it. The others enjoy doing it. What can we do? What can we surprise people with? What can we take and show you in a way that you have never seen it before? The material is there. What can we do with it? It's like digging or panning for gold in a river. And these things floating down. But the gold was ignored. It was left, it had dirt on it. You got to take it and polish it and make it shine. But it was gold.
Yeah, man, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Literally, maybe a few weeks before we actually read Hard Ears, I was talking to Jessica about how the strength of anime and a lot of these other shows from different cultures is that they have this rich culture, these pantheons, this mythology to draw on. And I say that the Caribbean doesn't really have that. And then literally 2 weeks later, I read Hard Ears, and Hard Ears had been produced 6 years before, 7 years before. And I realized that we do have this rich culture, these powerful pantheons that the average person is just not aware of. So yeah, I think beyond the cultural preservation, presenting it in the way that you do is very, very powerful, not just to the average Barbadian, or the average person for the Caribbean, but to creatives who are following in your footsteps. Because it teaches them that they don't need to draw outside of what their culture has to make interesting stories. So I think that's excellent work on your part, and I think more widely on the part of Beyond Publishing. So that, I guess that brings me towards the question of getting into the creation of comics and indie comics. How have you found the actual process of creating your books and then getting them out to the public? How's that experience been for you?
It's been fun. It's been hard work, a lot of long hours. It's not easy. Comics take a long time to do, especially if you want a certain level of quality and detail. I would always tell people story is king. Start with the story first, right? The indie comic thing is a lot easier now because of the internet. The internet has made the world such a small place. So the hardest thing now to do is actually to find the time to finish the work, right? And once you finish the work, it's as easy as sending a PDF and paying for it with a credit card. So I always tell people, listen, just start. Just start doing it. That's how you do. People ask, Matthew, how y'all do all these books? I say
I definitely asked that question, yes.
By doing the books. And that may sound facetious or like I trying to be slick, but it's literally that's what it is. Like you have to dedicate the time. Once you build that rhythm, you make the mistakes. You go through all the nuances. You learn all the little tricks of page turns and plotting and planning. You can only learn that from doing the books. I remember when Nigel and I first started working together. Nigel introduced me to like page turns and plotting. So like if you have, for instance, a area of suspense, you wouldn't really put it on the, I think it's the left page. You want to have it on the turn so that when you
Right.
turn the page, you see the result as a surprise. So I think it's the right page. You wouldn't really put it. You would put it on the left so that if there's something that's to shock you, you then see it when you turn the page and look in the left hand side of the book is like fresh versus the right. When you turn, you saw the right, but then you still gotta read the left first before you get there. So you then reveal the suspense. You kill the surprise.
Correct. And same thing. It's kind of the same thing for spreads too, because you go put the spread on the left hand page, and so it falls right to the
Exactly.
right page,
Exactly.
right? So yeah,
Yeah, man. I mean, you guys definitely have a very strong formula, and I do admit that it does sound facetious at times when you say just do it. I think honestly that you guys have a lot, and not to discount that you really just gotta put in the work and make it happen. But I think it would be remiss of me to not point out the fact that Beyond Publishing has in a lot of ways paved the way. Like y'all have figured out the formula. You got you have the process to me done in such a way that there's really a lot that the average person can learn or pay Beyond Publishing to give them the cheat sheet. I don't think that we should discount the amount of institutional knowledge that is within Beyond Publishing in terms of breaking into the indie comic space. And I mean, and even getting picked up and published as comic books. So I definitely think it's something that you guys should consider in terms of putting yourself out there and making your services available for a fee to the people who have not yet put in that work to get to where you guys are.
I appreciate that's a strong accolade, but I appreciate it. Sometimes you have to look back and realize that. I mean, I don't even see it as a formula because it's just something we kind of started to do. But what I could tell people is that we're pretty much relaxed in that we're not very stringent. I find when you go into something that starts as a hobby and is too stringent, especially something as labor intensive as comic book creation, it tends to become people begin to lose the pleasure and you begin to kill it. So what we did, the formula we have for the members and stuff in terms of our creation is that we split up into pairs or trees, and we have a project, we have an outcome, we have a loose deadline, and we tend to stick to that. And we have very informal meetings. We will line or talk on the phone, and we will plot the book in little acts and segments, so that it's not very overwhelming for the artist. Especially myself, I get overwhelmed easy with too much information when it comes to creating stories. I like to break it down into segments.
Okay.
So
okay.
I would have
what we
I
do-
would have never guessed that.
yeah, because when Nigel, for instance, like the book I'm working on, Diary of a Stray Dog's Indigo Child,
Mm.
I don't even know how that gonna end. Nigel tell me how it gonna end. I tell Nigel, listen, give me a synopsis. Don't tell me the ending yet. You're gonna overwhelm me. Break it down into segments. So right now we know segment 1, and they could give that my all. When they get to segment 2 now, is a fresh thing, and they could give that my all. Because I like to be able to understand what it is I'm drawing and put a creative spin on it. Not all writers work like that. Some writers are very um, they're very meticulous and they stipulate things down to a T, down to a bottle can that's on a ground, or this has to be there. And well, I like working with Nigel. He would tell me, all right, the guy in this slum, he like a slum in this particular country.
Mm-hmm.
They got some men coming down the street with a van, and these three characters gonna be here. Put him on the right side because they want him to talk first.
Right.
Sorry, put him on the left side because they want him talking
Let's talk
first,
first.
and
Right.
you do the rest. So he
Mm.
gives me the free rein to go and do my research, and I then create this visual space and bring his idea to life. That's how I work. There's
Yeah.
another artist and beyond who works opposite to me. You need to tell him the exact, precise things,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the formula that works for him. So
Right.
each individual has their formula. So it often works better when you are paired with somebody that you have a
Synergy.
symbiosis with.
Yeah.
How much I want to end beyond?
It is
Is you Nigel
myself. The
Tristan
principals are Delvin Howell,
Delvin?
Nigel
Mm-hmm.
Lynch, myself, Tristan Roach. You have Alexander Hayes, Aguinaldo Belgrave, Julian. Those are the principals.
The Magnificent Seven? Yeah.
If you want to call it that.
That sounds legit. That sounds
The
legit.
Magnificent Seven. Sensational Seven.
Wow.
So Jason is here
Yeah.
asking in the comments. He's asking how frequently do you work on your pages for any of your stories? I think we had discussed this a little bit before we came on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to work. It doesn't always happen, but yeah, at least try to do a little bit of comic work every day. No, that doesn't mean that I draw every day, but work could just be thinking about it. Or sometimes I go in my room and I plot a page, or if I'm writing, I write something. But I do it every day. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes I will end up like 2 days a week, or a whole week where I don't if I'm really busy. But I tend to try to at least put, at least 4 days out of the 7 days in a week. One of these, some of those nights into some comic book creation. So it becomes a rhythm. So even if you do a one panel, that is a step further to completion. Versus if I sat down and moped for months, oh, I'm so busy, I can't do it. And then nothing ever
Right,
gets
right.
done and it becomes depressing. So to break that
Sound
cycle,
like he
you have
grabbed
to
it, not my
do
shirt.
bits and bits and bits. Even if it's a one panel or it's a piece of a panel, sometimes I do a panel on a busy week and that whole panel takes a whole week. Sometimes I do a page in a day. Right? It depends on how busy I am and the momentum, how I feel, what I'm going through. But I always make sure there's some progress every week. I'm always steps or millimeters or miles ahead of where I was the previous week. And you will find that goes a long, long way to completing a project.
That's
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Just chipping out every single day. Like, at least if you sit down, at least, all right,
Hour, half hour, 10 minutes.
half hour, 10 minutes, whatever.
If you want
you
the
chip
toilet
out.
and you coming up with a story.
Nah,
Bridget
no,
and
but
the
that's
Earth.
That's real talk.
That
happens. That
makes
really
sense.
happens.
It makes
Yeah.
sense.
No,
But
shitty
once
ideas I
you
had.
are once you are thinking about it, you are working on it. But
Yep.
inertia is the enemy of progress. So you have to get some kind of traction and movement with the work because comic work is not the work of the lazy. It is not a exercise that you could practice mendicancy. It is not something that is born out of inertia. You have to get moving. You have to do something because you are drawing a scene in each panel. Each panel is a piece of artwork. in itself sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And you're telling a story using the sequential arc. So it is not easy as a labor of love. But once you find that love, you find it hard to. I get fidgety when I'm not doing, getting to do comic work. I'm always anxious to get into what I call the labs. I say I'm in the labs and
Mm-hmm.
working on, this production. And I have fun. It's something that should be fun. You know,
And
Yeah,
nothing in
I think
living
that's very
intensive.
important.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
man. Tell us a bit about your lab, Matthew. What was your setup? What do you use to draw the
it's
tools of the
real
trade?
simple. I use a computer tower, a PC. At work, I use a Mac. That's for my day job. I work on both. I like the PC environment because of how it handles the way I come, and I could upgrade my system, etc. Um, I always assemble my own PC. I don't really need a huge powerhouse, but I would buy like a second-hand gaming um,
Video card,
graphics card,
graphics card.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and use because I just run in like Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator. Those
Right.
are the three bits of software that I use to create. And that's pretty much it. It doesn't take a lot of fancy thing. I use a Wacom tablet. I like the smaller tablets because I could work with them in my lap. I do not like big tablets.
Mm.
I hate big graphic tablet. Listen, I love small tablets, as small as
When
a mouse pad.
when you say
Because it's
small, you mean like 13-inch? 13
nah,
inches
it's
is too
smaller than
big.
that's too big. I like the ones that are as big as a mouse pad that I could sit down and put in my lap and I work in there. So like my Intuos is a small one, the smallest one you
Mm-hmm.
could get. I like the Intuos. I don't want all these fancy features. I don't want no damn touch screen. I don't want all that. It comes with that. I turn all that off. I
Wait,
turn
wait,
off
wait,
the
wait, wait. So
You
Seriously.
you
you
are the
don't
first
draw
person
you
I've ever heard say that they prefer a smaller tablet to work
yes.
on.
so you don't
Because how I
you don't
draw,
go ahead,
I
go ahead,
have the
go ahead.
thing in my lap. And this
Mm-hmm.
probably not the best ergonomics, but I sit back, I have it in my lap, and I because I rotate the tablet and I turn it, I rotate the screen in
Mm-hmm.
Photoshop. Um, I do a lot of that. I'm very tactile with the drawing because I came from the paper days.
Right. Same
Um,
here.
no, not
Same
to
here.
that. I love paper. The masters are on paper, but no, the masters are also digital. There are people
Yep.
like Kenan White, who's an African American comic illustrator, extremely talented. I follow him. The internet has blessed
Yep.
me to be able
Yeah,
to
we interview
follow
him.
his social media, and he was on one of the Zion interviews.
Yep.
I
We
also
interviewed him
follow
a
and
couple of
from
months
time
ago.
to time correspond with Lebu Underwood. He is a master of the traditional inking medium,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
right? I refer to Canon as a master of the digital. Lebu is a master of the traditional inks, right? And I am privileged to have them on my social media. That is the beauty of the internet. You can now
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
see and witness these people on top of their game, at the top of the industry, their work, and they're sharing their work with you online. Um, my studio space is nowhere as fancy as them. It's just a computer, a medium-sized monitor. I don't like huge monitors. A small Wacom, and that's it. Turn on pressure sensitivity, and that's it. That's just
Wow.
me.
Mm.
I don't like the touch screen. My hand is end up touching it and moving something. I don't like all the buttons on. I turn off all the buttons on the Wacom. Every artist has got a different nuance. But I keep a
Clearly.
very simple setup. And
That's interesting.
sometimes I will play like a podcast in the
That
background,
is so interesting.
a Zion podcast.
She song
Sometimes I will
big up yourself.
listen to to
No, you
play
don't
the
have
game
you don't
podcast.
have to like. No one wants to hear Sean in their background, and I said that specifically. I said that specifically for him, and he watches this. No one wants to hear Sean in their
I
background when they're
agree.
trying to do something
Trust me.
important. Shots
Yeah,
fired,
well,
Sean.
it is what it is. It is what it is.
uh,
But anyway,
but no, man,
but
I
that's
think
interesting,
that's
though, Martha,
important to really
because
point out.
like
No, go on, Julian,
yeah,
go
because
on.
I was saying it's interesting. Yeah, because it's saying it was interesting because again, going back to what we were back at BCC, because I know you've always been drawing with pencil and stuff like that. To know that you still have that inkling to feel for the paper, to have like that small space, whereas that you could take
Yeah,
something
I
smaller
can't help
in
it.
detail,
I
right?
can't help
I
it.
guess yeah. For now, we know we can't help
Not
it
not that
because
I will
for
not
me,
that I will not the same teeth. That's the one we draw on
right?
the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that's on.
I've
Yeah.
actually never tried it, so I won't knock it until I try it.
Okay.
But I'm
Cool.
so stuck in how I do things that maybe later or some point in the future I would try one.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, I just like the cheap, the cheaper where it comes, which is like the bamboo or the intuos,
Are you serious?
the small. Yeah, I
Uh,
don't like them fancy
I can't. I
things. Them
can't.
there. Listen, when I at work, I don't. You know the Mac Magic mice.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
uh-huh.
can't deal with them. I deal with the mice with the wire. Because I am changing
Wow.
I am recharging no damn thing. I ain't got time for it. I just want my thing working and that's it.
I
And
I
that's
don't
had
need
it.
wired
I had a
mouse.
bamboo.
I love it.
I had a bamboo
Yeah, B.
like a while ago, and I had so much issues with me looking at a screen and drawing down
That's how we
here.
do it. I don't look
I
down.
cannot get that done. I cannot
Yeah,
get it
No,
done.
that's how we do
that's
it.
called practice. That's called practice. Right? I
Yeah,
actually
I
yeah.
did
Because
mean,
it to a friend
when he
too.
first did it, it was like learning to draw over again.
I
So
do
much
the
Mm-hmm.
so
same.
my first thing, they don't make them anymore. It was a Graphite 4. It was a
hmm,
Wacom. A very old Wacom. That was my first Wacom. And I remember when he first thing that man, he put that down for a year. I was like, man, he done with this. And then when he did Heartman by hand, and I started to practice with the Wacom coming down to the end of Heartman. So all them screen tones and lines and them digital thing, all I was done with a mouse.
Mm,
And
Bet
for
you I
Heart,
bet
hardcore.
someone don't know that either.
the
Before
last set
even
of
then.
I
cuts,
sound like so much
Heart
pain, B.
Heartman
It
was
is.
pink, one of them, and it was a felt tip marker, different sizes, different nibs,
hmm
a Sharpie marker and India ink with using the brush tips. And tons of 8.5 by 11 paper. To get bigger scenes, sometimes I would stick the paper together because I didn't have I didn't have the well it's here on island, but I was too lazy to go and buy a proper big sketch pad and man, I just had enough computer paper and they work on that. Is not the best industry standard. And like so for instance the double page spread where the policeman is turned over, that's like 3.5 by 11 papers taped together. And they
Wow.
drew on
Wow.
top of that. And they scan them
Wow.
in pieces and put them back in Photoshop. And
I'm
that's
laughing, but it turned out really good.
thank
Yeah,
you.
man.
I
That's one of
That's
the
not
most
industry
epic. That's
standard,
one of the
but
most epic scenes
that's probably
in the
not the
series.
way you're supposed to do it. That's my laziness.
You
That's my
probably should have.
laziness.
You probably should
So
have said
don't
that.
think that we don't have large format paper in Barbados. You
we
know,
definitely do.
I am
We
just
do.
lazy in terms of
Uh,
getting certain things.
Chrome is saying that drawing on printer paper is a culture, and I feel that in my soul.
Yep.
I've burnt through entire reams of printer paper
Yeah,
just producing art.
but the texture is just so good, though. for
yeah,
printer
Agreed.
paper.
everything. Listen, that is whole ink. Everything is drawn nice on printer paper. I
Yeah,
can't sell
bro.
it. I probably can't sell it at a Comic Con, but and I still got the originals in a folder.
Mhm.
You should
But
get
then
Oh,
them
I
that.
transitioned
as a
over to the
NFT.
digital inking,
hmm
and it was like learning to draw over again. And one day, just started doing it. It was like riding a bicycle. If I think about it, it starts to go wobbly But if I don't think about it, I don't have to look down. I
Mm-hmm.
got past the disconnect. So I
Yeah,
just
I
look at
had
the
the same
screen and it's
experience.
come out. But for me, it wasn't easy. It wasn't, and I had a lot of frustration, and I just put it down, and I came back to it after like a year of that thing catching dust. And then when that broke up, I got the Intuos, the smallest one they had available.
No, but
I
I
love
think
these
that
small tablets.
that goes to show that there is no excuse to not producing the things you want to produce. If you can do what you're doing with quite basic tools, no one has an excuse.
Exactly.
Shut up,
Not
bro.
at all.
Shut up.
Wow.
That's a port right at you, Cam. A port right at you.
Oh, is the podcast. I mean,
Over.
technically, this is for everybody that listen to know. We supposed to be we supposed to be doing our own project. Each person's supposed to have like their own character that they're supposed to be doing. How far you get you character? Since
Oh
you
God.
poking at me, since you poking the bear.
Shit.
My
Here we
character?
go.
Yeah, you character. How far you get?
My character I drew?
Well, I
My
have
character
sketches.
my character that I drew?
I have sketches
And
of my
I
character.
also drew Ian's character? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Make it, look,
Voila.
man, he even here to
I
defend
want to see
himself.
these characters, though. I want to see these characters, man.
No, we can drop them in the chat.
I can
or
talk
in
to me in
the
chat.
Discord.
Our Horsemen characters. I think I posted mine and I posted Ian's on Instagram for sure. But yeah, man, I will do them.
The problem with mine is that I don't know what direction I want to go with them. So I have like two
Fair.
versions. I have two versions. I have like a big, I have like a big armored type person, and then I have one that looks very brutish, like a barbarian, Planet Hulk kind of character, and is for me, I don't know what I want to decide because the character is set far in the future and it deals with a lot of high fantasy and sci-fi. So by rights, he should look futuristic, but based on his like fighting style and things, he's a brute. Like he's sophisticated. He's a sophisticated person when it comes to fighting. It's like watching like how I envision it is like watching the Hulk go ape shit. So you don't necessarily want someone in Iron Man armor fighting like the Hulk, but the Iron Man armor looks cool. So
Well, do it.
What
Do a brute that is
I think
full of technology.
Yeah,
Don't be afraid of the concept. Commit to the concept.
I think what I'm doing now is having like the armor from Black Panther, the nanites. I'm probably gonna have him suit up like that, or like how Tony Stark will suit up with his nanites. So he has armor on when he wants it, but he will still be the brute sort of thing. So I just trying to define it. I was working on the story too because I have that third out, and we're also working on another project that we should probably drop some of those things in the chat too. But
yeah,
I can leave that to Julian because we wanna finish it first. I think I've been working on that since last year, but we took a stop.
Yeah.
The project
because
of
Sean
had
Sean no fuck it Sean no say Sean
okay
say Sean no one else
Sean wanted to do an anthology last year and we finished we pretty much had almost finished our entry to it, but I'm not sure why it was canceled, but he had canceled the release of it.
Well,
So we just put on a back burner. So we're trying to finish it now.
Work on it. Still finish the work if you want to.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. We working on it for sure. We definitely gonna finish it. Because,
actually, when we finish here, I'm supposed to go and do the dialogue.
Yeah,
So
that's true
that
because
is
I
definitely
suppose
getting
like putting in the
finished.
dialogue and stuff over him. So yeah,
Yeah. So after this, we probably gonna work on it.
despite what Sean thinks, but it can get finished. With or without Sean, it will get finished.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man. So we're definitely getting sidetracked here.
It's true.
Matthew, definitely
It's fun though.
thanks for coming through. I think we're gonna start to let you go. But before you go, you wanna shout out any of your upcoming works? I know you have mentioned Indigo Child. You wanna show off a bit of those scenes before you go?
Yeah, I've sent you some. I don't know if you have can bring it up on this
Yeah,
or
definitely.
um
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Let me
Oh, this is
zoom in a
wonderful.
bit.
This
If Lord, come on, computer, don't embarrass me.
this we're talking about here. It's really distinct to see your style though, Matthew, because again, watching you from days of BCC and to come this far and doing the exact work that I think that you would have been among to for a long time. This is so amazing though, brother.
thank you.
I really do. I honestly I was a fan from before of how you worked from school days even to this day. I still think it is commendable, sir, that you just probably work
Thank you. I
thoroughly.
appreciate that.
So I really do. I do really do. I really do. Give you a pat on your back for this. Be like, anytime I see you do work, it's like, yeah, I gotta step up my game every single time. See, this is exactly what we're talking about here,
It's
right
the
here.
buildings and the vehicles for me that always gets me.
Yeah. Matthew's technical drawing skills are phenomenal. Like
And like
I can't I
how
can't stress
the
that enough.
perspectives are like this one right here where you have the corridor, how the perspective is
Hmm.
done is so well done.
Yeah, man.
Thank you. And that all these shots again. I want to bring this world to life, and so I tend to do a lot of world building and try to show a lot of the backgrounds when needed, and depending on the story, so that persons will get a idea of where I'm talking about, etc.
Hmm.
Yeah, man. This stuff is
Yeah.
amazing. All right, so we're probably gonna do a quick run through of our pop culture highlights. Matthew, you want to stick around for that? You got anything
Sure,
Yeah, you
you
have
want to
anything
discuss?
you watched this
sure.
month that you want to rate for us?
That I've been watching recently.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
could. Yeah,
Yeah.
just like a miniature
Yeah,
review of something that you were watching this month. You could go
I
with
was
us.
watching Loki. Love all the new Marvel shows. Love that one in particular. I mean, each one that comes out, I always say, "Well, this is my favorite." Is like getting, they really have the formula back. I was also watching Grappler Backy,
Oh
Mm.
which
Lord.
Oh
is
yeah, I remember
Mm.
you telling us that.
ridiculous, but that
Hmm.
listen, that is so addictive because it is so unapologetically over the top. The
Top.
drawing style is wild. Like I hated the drawings at first, but now I'm hooked on it. That has become a secret pleasure for me. Grappler
Wow.
Baki. Um, I've been watching like some of the ethnic cartoons on Netflix. The one that
Mm-hmm.
was set in the Philippines.
Traces.
Trace,
Trust
Tracy.
it.
Trace,
Traces.
yeah,
Yeah. Trust
Yeah, I
yeah,
it.
love
that was
that.
interesting.
Yeah, there was.
Um, Castlevania was interesting, and in terms of real life series, I like to watch. Um, when I'm not watching documentaries, I like to watch. Um, there's not one particular genre, but I like serious series. So
Mm.
like Snowfall. I
Mm.
like um, Resident Alien. That was sort of a comedy sci-fi. That was weird. I like
Yes, that was funny as
Euphoria.
hell. Yeah.
Euphoria was nice. Um, Never Have I Ever. So I watch a variety of shows because from these shows I learn writing technique. I don't consider myself a professional writer. I'm not classically trained in writing, but I
Mm.
think I can write. And I may not know all the terms to describe the techniques that I use, but I pick up a lot of on technique from reading history, the work that I do, etc.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. Since no chick flicks.
Yeah, there was that one called Sex slash Life that was on Netflix.
What?
Yeah, I
Wow.
love that. I love the script. I love the story,
I gotta check that
the
out.
drama. I
No,
tend
he
to
just
watch
says
a
I gotta check it
variety of
out.
shows
Yeah,
from
same.
fantasy, chick flicks, cartoons. It just has to be good or interest me at that time. Sometimes I would check something because I saw a review, or sometimes I would find something that's a little obscure, but turns out to
Mm-hmm.
be a hidden gem.
Mm-hmm. No.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, man, that
Cool.
that that sounds
Cool.
good. All right, what about you, Cameron? What have you been doing this month?
So I've been extremely busy this month, but I watched. I remember last month I think I had suggested Startup.
Uh huh.
Right. So that is 3 seasons,
Yes.
and I watched the last. I watched all three this month. Um, that is really good. That
Mm.
is really. I can't begin to describe how good it is in terms of the story, these how they tell the story, how they build out the characters, because all the characters start one place and then they all branch off into these various versions of themselves as the story progresses,
Mm-hmm.
and it is very interesting to see how they interplay with each other as they develop through their own personal arcs. Um, there's a lot of what the fuck moments as you progress, as you
Mm.
as you progress through the. Because I was watching it with my wife, and I was watching it. So our friend Miles, he watched it before me, and every time like something big happens, there is literally a voice note in his phone with me screaming
Oh,
at him. That's how good it is.
Wow.
I recommend anybody go and watch that series. It is a good watch. I would recommend not binging it, like space it out. Let it let it breathe. Right? And then the second thing I really watched
No.
this month was Black Widow. Um I think I
Mm-hmm.
watched that last week. Was it last week? If not last week, the week before.
mm-hmm.
So very quick on it. The story is good, but
Right.
I the world setting is good because it's set between Civil War and
And the end game.
in is Infinity War, Civil War and
Yeah,
Infinity War.
Infinity War.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you get to see what Black Widow was up to in the in between time. I don't think she was as strong as a character in that as she usually is in the regular Avengers and Marvel series, but she was good. The world build of what they were fighting was interesting as a concept, but for me personally, the big bad evil guy and his like lieutenant were not that big of a threat to me. Like they never seemed really in danger. For
Mm.
me, I like the I like her sister in the movie,
Oh yeah.
and her sister, the actor was good, and the character of her sister was good. I like the interaction of the family unit that they had. It was like the most hilarious dysfunctional family, and only Marvel could pull that off. And it was like a good action adventure show, but it was not one of their best movies. It would be average for me. It would be average for Marvel, but that's still good.
Mm.
So
Okay.
those are two things I would focus on this month. So I would probably give it like a high 7 out of 10, because I did enjoy it. But from like a storyline standpoint or a character standpoint, I think that their characters could be better because In fact, in the movie they brought in Taskmaster,
Yep.
and I would have liked to see Taskmaster do Taskmaster stuff. You saw a little glimpse of it, but it was very underplayed on how dangerous Taskmaster can be. If you get what he's saying.
Yeah,
Yep.
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, that's fair, and I think I agree with your take on Black Widow. It was definitely a good movie, but as far as Marvel movies goes, it was kind of just average for a Marvel movie. So yeah, I quite agree. How about you, Julian? What do you want to talk about this month?
Yeah.
You want?
All right. So I just going to highlight two things. I can just make it quick. So I guess everyone probably haven't who has Netflix or the account on Netflix probably have seen the resurgence of the 80s boom. And with that, I mean the Masters of the Universe Revelation is shy.
Yeah, I saw that.
So the thing is that it's bait and switch. The unfortunate thing is it's a big bait and switch. So for those who knew about He-Man and the Masters Universe is just Masters Universe. No already know He-Man. Kevin Smith, you son of a gun. Anyway, so it focuses more on Tila and her exploits after the what would happen to be the dissipation of the Eternia, so to speak, and she just going on a quest to find herself away from magic. Okay, I see what you're doing, but it's alright because to me, I think everyone else plays a good role except Tila.
Hmm.
Man at Arms is the MVP of the whole entire series.
Man of Arms is
Skytor is
bad,
still a
man.
badass. He-Man is still
Skeletor was
the
great.
big buff. I swear to God, Beastman is the second MVP in the whole entire series, and they were missing a whole set of different characters, which I thought that were going to be a part of him of Masters of the Universe, not He-Man. What I keep saying, Merman's a man,
Got him.
because like there's nowhere in there, right, that you could control the whole entire sea, and there's no way that I would be controlling everything else on. That ain't working at all, because I would definitely storm over it. So all in all, it's a mixed match of things that I felt like it was supposed to be, but it end up like all right. So it's only 5 episodes on Netflix, and well, if you watched last week's Zion Network variety show, you will probably know that we threw that into the Phantom Zone, and there were
Oh
reasons why
wow.
we did it. But anyway,
Yep.
yeah, unfortunately, yeah. So that would happen. So still on the Netflix train. This is something that I guess we didn't get to mention though is Love, Death, and Robots. That series
Oh yeah,
has
Volume
been
2 came out.
under look for a while because the Volume 2 came out like what months ago,
It came out
right?
Mm-hmm.
in
But anyway,
April
um,
or May, I think.
I think it was I guess from the whole binge culture, it kind of like felt like it was kind of underwhelmed because people weren't really buzzing about it from before. I certainly
Mm-hmm.
didn't hear too much of it, but I watched it last couple of weeks ago. I was like, okay, this is still interesting because you have like these set short stories told individually by different, obviously by different styles of animation, and they were pretty good. I love this. I still love the series, but again, the underwhelming of everything else on Netflix and dealing with COVID and everybody just going mad with other things, and it just kind of like for me it swept under the rug. But
Yeah.
volume two of of the show is a definite gem though for me. So I recommend watching volume one first before you watch volume two because that's the order it came because one comes before two, so makes
Naturally,
sense.
yes.
But and honestly, it's like it. I guess, and then honestly though, just go check it out and see for yourself. If you think I'm wrong, you know how to catch me. The art of Mohz, and I will be looking for you. So that's it.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So I guess that leaves me. Um, so I have two major highlights for this month. Like Matthew, I've been focusing a lot on, these animated series that come out from the different regions. for the last few months, I think that these Chinese animation studios have been kind of killing it. This month, I watched the daily life of an immortal king. That is so I really like that. I feel like it's part of this subgenre of animated series that like One Punch Man would fall into, as well as the disastrous life of Psyche K. Um, it's really about a main character who is so ridiculously overpowered that his struggles are like that the struggles of the real world just don't apply to him at all. He's just on another level. So that is an interesting take. If you've watched the Disastrous Life of Psyche K on Netflix, it feels like the Chinese take on that. Overall, it's kind of like a generic magical high school tale, but the spin is that the main character is the most powerful character in the universe. He's absolutely ridiculous. So I quite like that. My second highlight for the month is actually a video game. Delvin will back me up on this. I think that in recent years, Streets of Rage 4 has been the best take on 2D like sprite work games in a long time. And you know, I'm a long time gamer, so I would have played the original Streets of Rage back on the Sega Genesis. I love Streets of Rage 1 and 2. 3 can die in a ditch. But Streets of Rage 4 is a return to form for the series, and the artwork is absolutely amazing. They dropped some DLC in July. They added 3 new characters. You can play it as Shiva from Streets of Rage 3, I want to say, maybe 2. You can play it as the new character Estelle that was introduced in Streets of Rage 4, and you can play it as Matt Thunder for Streets of Rage 2. And the game is top notch. If you are a gamer, I recommend Streets of Rage 4 wholeheartedly. So those are it. Those are my pop culture highlights for the month. I know we're all struggling. It's been a long month for all of us, so I'm gonna allow Julian to wrap up. I know you got some news about the variety show tomorrow, Julian, so you can share that with people before we sign off.
Yes, sir. Right. So unfortunately, we won't have any show tomorrow because some of unforeseen things happening in the background. We won't be able to do the live tomorrow. But that don't mean that we're stunned. We're gonna not do it any fashion. Because after that, next week we will be back on same bat time, same bat channel, as Sean would call it. I don't know why I said it because that's so corny. But anyway.
Because one of his partners, be your dynamic duo. He's Batman, you're Robin.
It's just sometimes he's just why am I even doing this? Jeez. I knew how to do it. Thanks, Cam. Thank you. Well, the screen is on me fully, and I'm just here being embarrassed being next to Sean.
I'm sorry.
Great.
Sorry.
Wonderful. Thank you. Jesus. Anyway. Again, so we're not going to be here next week. This week we're going to be back on next week. We're doing. Thank you.
Sorry, bro. Keep on going.
That's better. So next week look for us again. Design Network, Instagram handle as usual. We definitely be having more of shenanigans and stuff like that. And we will continue. Hopefully, we continue the game that Sean forgot to tell me the rules of. So yeah. Also, yeah, that's it. Also, I just want to plug the upcoming anthology that we are working on. It's for everyone who is not Barbadian, but Caribbean descent, or if you have family that you're family to anyone else in the Caribbean, or you have a deepin for it, maybe you can probably submit to Sean Aline. He will be looking forward to seeing like the different ideas you have for the anthology. So if you know Sean, you can directly talk to him through any social medias that you have, and you can send the artwork to him or the pictures to him so he can actually get started on the anthology. What else is there I need to plug? That would be all. I think that would be it. So this will be it. So yeah, so over you, Roun.
All right, that sounds good. So that just leaves the time to sign us all out. Thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in. Thanks to Sean Eileen for giving us the platform to do This Is the End. Big shout outs to our guy Matthew Clarke for coming through and blessing us with the knowledge.
Thank you for having me.
No problem, Matthew, man. We really enjoyed
being
your
here.
For sure. We definitely appreciate your historical knowledge, your view into the industry, and your walkthrough on art. So for everyone here, please follow me at Art of Roun, follow Cam at Art of Jin, follow Matthew at Mix Chemist, follow Julian at The Art of Mohz, follow the Zion Network 246, and Zion_Expo. If you haven't yet, join the Discord. Join us there for more discussions. I'm going to start about having weekly voice chats in there. And that's it. So we're signing off. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Julian, you want to take us out?
Yeah. So as usual, be safe, be creative, be you. See you all next month. Peace.
Peace.
And wash your ass, because that's important.
I was hoping that you would be reasonable.
We were so close. We were this
We
close.
were so close. So close.
No.
Later, people.
Later.
No. I had to do it. Peace.